So, some families wonder as they begin the adoption process who is eligible to be able to adopt. They may wonder, am I able to adopt? I have a criminal background. Am I able to adopt? So, let's talk about that today on All About Adoption. Hi, if we haven't met, I'm Stephanie A. I am the founder and executive director here at Adoption and Beyond, and I help hopeful adoptive families adopt the child of their dreams, and I help expecting moms who feel adoption is the right choice for them and their child, help them find an adoptive family for their child. So let's talk about who is eligible to adopt. So first of all, most states you just need to be 18 years of age and older to be able to adopt. Now, some states, it's 21 to be able to adopt. So it's good just to look at your individual state or the state you're hoping to adopt through to see what the age eligibility is. Now, for example, with our agency, we are able to do home cities for families or individuals who are 21 years of age and older. But to join our adoption program, our board has set the age at 25 in order to join our adoption program. And the reason for that is because at age 25, our brains have fully matured. And when we do adoptions, we do what are called open adoptions. And with open adoptions, that takes a lot of maturity to be able to manage those relationships and to maneuver through all the different intricals of an open adoption. And so that is why our board had made the decision of 25. But in terms of legally being able to adopt, it's going to be somewhere between 18 and 21, depending on the state. Now, the upper age of being able to adopt is I'm not aware of there being an upper age because a lot of times, sometimes grandparents will be adopting their grandchildren. And so we find for our agency, the upper age is 67. And I can tell you that is unique and that a lot of agencies will shut their proving of a family and being able to join their list at 50. I've known some that are even as low as 45 or 40, but most will go on up into their 50 or right up to 50. We chose, or I should say the board chose 67 because 67 at the time of this policy being made, 67, you have a life expectancy of being able to get the child to 18. So that's where that decision would come. But I'm not aware of any states having an upper limit in terms of what's legally allowed to be an upper age of being able to adopt. So families who are single families or married families are able to adopt. That you'll find across the board anywhere that whether you're single or married, you will be eligible to be able to adopt. Now, whether an agency will work with single parents, that's a different thing. There are agencies here, for example, in the Kansas City area that do not work with single parents. And so you may find that that is more of an individual agency requirement. So if you're married, then you'll find that legally you can adopt. There's no limit in terms of the amount of time you need to be married, but you'll find that agencies have their own policies and procedures to that. So for example, Adoption and Beyond, we require at least 1 year of marriage and we have policies. We have what's the word I'm looking for? We have that's not a hard and fast policy. There are other things that are taken into consideration as well, but we're unique in that most agencies require a longer period of time. You'll also find that agencies will have, for example, if you've been married before, they may require a longer period of time that you've been married for your second or third or whatever amount of times. That also brings up a really good point that if you've been divorced, some agencies have a limit on how many divorces you're able to have in order to be able to be considered for that agency's program. Criminal background. Now, this one, the general rule is if you have a felony of a criminal nature, usually you are not able to adopt. I have seen other felonies, for example, a bad check writing, things like that. Sometimes even forgery. Sometimes we've seen those be just fine in terms of getting through the adoption process. But you're going to find that ultimately it's the courts who approve whether the adoption is going to occur or not. And I can tell you that there is a local county around the Kansas City area that if you have a DUI, the courts will not consider you for the adoption process based on a previous case that had happened within that county. So the judges have their own personal preferences, and sometimes that they'll extend on whether to approve a family or not. But generally, a criminal background, not of a violent felony nature, usually will not stop you with the adoption process. Now, if you're adopting internationally, that may be different because the countries may have their own requirement. And it's also taken into consideration how long ago that DUI was. Was it back in college when you were young and brain wasn't quite as mature yet? Then that's going to be taken to whether this DUI happened last week. So those are the things that are considered when it comes to background checks. So if you are concerned, or if you have any concerns, be sure you talk to your agency before you would apply to work with them. And also, please be honest about any and every background situation, because if you think it's been removed and it's been expunged, I can tell you for an adoption agency, it has not. And we have access to those records. So be honest and open, and most of the times you'll be just fine. So some policies and procedures are around whether you can use spanking on a child as a discipline. Corporal punishments, what's that called? So you'll find that some states have requirements and some agencies have requirements. So be sure that you really check into that in terms of whether an agency or a state would even be able to approve your adoption if you do spank your children. So it's really important that as you enter into the adoption process that you consider other avenues of discipline of your child versus spanking, because that could come into play and hinder you from being able to adopt. Now, one other thing to think about is that sometimes agencies have their own individual requirements of whether you can choose the gender of your child that you're hoping to adopt or the race of your child. And a lot of times those boil down to agency policies and learning what the agency requires. So if you have a unique situation, I always encourage you to reach out and to ask questions and to get clarification before you move forward with any agency to make sure that you are a good fit and that agency is a good fit for you. So I hope you found this helpful. Please be sure to hit the subscribe button, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks. Bye.